So part two, we have Elias Sueda coming up to speak to us about cryptocurrencies. So again, this is something that's very new for a lot of us. I just started out with investments a couple years ago, and it's radically shifted with Bitcoin and those kind of things. And there's a lot of kind of confusion and questions around that. And he's here today. He's been working in the finance sector and investing for nearly 12 years. He specializes in options trading in the U.S. tech sector and cryptocurrencies. And he currently runs a data analytics company for restaurants in Calgary. And so he'll chat more about that. And he knows a lot about cryptocurrencies. So why don't we give a warm welcome to Elias, and he'll be doing part two for us today.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Josh, and thanks for having me here. How's everybody doing today? Pretty good? Awesome. Hopefully we'll give you some valuable information here that talking about cryptocurrencies. And so we'll get that presentation up on the screen over here and get ready to rock. All right. So my name is Elias, and as Josh mentioned, I've been investing for quite some time, and started in the cryptocurrency realm in about 2016 or so. And so lately, the last few years, I've been focusing primarily on options trading and the stock market, and our company been heavily focused on that. Haven't been focused so much on the cryptocurrency sector in the last couple of years, unfortunately, due to time. But nevertheless, it's a very interesting sector, and it's hopefully you'll be able to acquire some knowledge or some understanding onto whether or not you would actually like to further seek information on this, because this is just an introduction. You're not going to learn everything about cryptos in the next 25 minutes here. So, yeah. Just waiting for the slide. Awesome. So we'll start off with a good old legal disclaimer. So I am not a financial advisor, nor should anything within this presentation be considered financial advice. So please consult your financial advisor on any investments, if you even have a cryptocurrency financial advisor. So yeah, hopefully, as I mentioned, this presentation will give you information on how to, whether or not you're further looking to acquiring more information in the cryptocurrency sector. Kind of funny, back when I started in 2016 and I took a look at this, my friends who had initially taught me about the stock market looked into cryptocurrency and did quite a bit of research on it. And it was funny, initially I said, nope, not interested, and they kept talking and talking about it and talking about all these different terms and technologies and stuff, and I just said, okay guys, like enough, like I don't care, and finally they kept talking enough to the point where I was like, okay, if this is of that importance to the point where they keep going with this, I wonder why. So I took a look into it, and hopefully you'll have an open mind with respect to what you've already heard from the outside, whether you've heard good things about crypto, whether you've heard about that it's a major scam or that everything's going down the drain. Hopefully this will enlighten you as to some of the use cases and some of the benefits, and you can make a conclusion for yourself. So, yeah. So cryptocurrency, what is it? So the definition of cryptocurrency is it's a digital currency in which transactions and records are maintained on a decentralized system using cryptography rather than a centralized system. So couple big terms in there, but essentially it's a digital currency that works on something called blockchain technology, which we'll get into in a little bit here. Typically, the cryptocurrencies that are available are decentralized. So they're free from any third-party interference. And when we're talking about the decentralization of cryptocurrency, we're talking about with respect to the technology and how it works on the blockchain itself. It's free from any third-party interference within that respect. Now, there are some cryptocurrencies that have a more centralized aspect to them in the sense that there are some individual entities that more so or less kind of control the direction of where it goes, somewhat similar to a company. So, yeah. Cryptocurrencies are secured by something called cryptography. So that's a special protocol. That's something that these currencies use as a method of technology in order to secure their proof of work and to secure their validity. So if you took a system and you went to test it out, just like any standard open system, you wanted to ensure that it withstood the test of whatever you're throwing at it in order to then accomplish what its goals are. So cryptocurrency uses cryptography in order to establish that. So if we take a little history and take a little look back, in the early days, before there was even any form of currency, individuals would trade different items and different goods for one another. You trade like a cat for a dog, let's say, for example, or whatever of value, of chicken for a horse, or whatever type of value that you would find in a good before currencies ever came out. Then we got to the era where we got into a currency, a coin was made. So typically that was established by silver and gold, something of tangible value that you could establish to like a material good. So when silver and gold were established back in the day, not only did the actual element that was present had tangible value, so they used that to say, well, okay, at the very least, like this element, this material that I'm holding actually literally has tangible value, which everybody back in the day had said, okay, this is something worth of value here, right? The other unique thing is that what happened was we got currencies involved, silver and gold. Now we transition to something with not necessarily like tangible value, like the physical paper or plastic that is made from some currencies nowadays, like the Canadian dollar, for example. There's not so much tangible value in that physical material, right? But what happened is a central authority came in and said, this is going to be the centralized currency for this country. So there was a conclusion made by everybody to say, yes, the Canadian dollar, the Canadian $20 bill has tangible value in that respect. Now it's a really unique time in history, which we've never seen before, where technology has actually enabled us to say, okay, is it possible to partially remove? I don't think personally we'll ever remove central authorities. You'll never remove the government of Canada completely from a type of standard currency, in my opinion. But is there the ability to remove some form of central authorities on a transfer of value? And that's what we're going to get into and take a look at over here. So, yeah. So, you can't talk about cryptocurrency without talking about the blockchain. So, the definition of the blockchain is it's a system in which a record of transactions made in cryptocurrencies are maintained across several computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. Blockchain itself is a type of technology. It's not a single network. It's not that all these currencies are on some one entity called the blockchain. They are various types of technologies that many of these cryptocurrencies use and protocols that they individually adhere to in order to function and produce the goals that they want. So the primary advantages of the blockchain are as follows over here. Is one of the ways, one of the primary advantages is the way it tracks and stores data. So it stores information into blocks, into which then they go in order to create the chain. And so the great benefit of this is that these blocks cannot be changed. So if you take a look at a transaction, instead of saying, oh, let's reverse that transaction, let's change that, blockchains do not work that way. They're actually non-destructive. So they cannot be changed, which also provides value that we'll go into shortly here. So rather than changing it, a new block would be created and say, to say that, okay, X has now changed to Y, rather than reversing a block on the chain. So, yeah, we have on the blockchain a collection of computational transactions called a ledger. So if you think of like a financial ledger and you look at all the transactions, let's say I make a purchase to Amazon. So what happens is, you know, for the most part, it shows minus $10, for example, in my account. It shows plus $10 in Amazon's account. That's the ledger. There is a ledger that is involved in the blockchain of these cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, for example. And the unique thing with that is that there are nodes, something called nodes, within these cryptocurrencies that contain the entire ledger of the blockchain. So they contain the entire ledger on each node. And this peer-to-peer network that happens every single node contains that, and that's how they interact with one another, and they verify one another to ensure that the ledger present on every single node is an exact match. So little technical right there, but hopefully you're able to grasp that understanding. The second thing is that the blockchain creates trust in data. So before a block can be added to the chain, a cryptographic puzzle is actually solved and shares a solution with all the other computers in the network, and then if it's correct, it will be added to the chain. And that's called proof of work. So, for example, if everybody in this room says, these chairs are gray, but one individual says these chairs are beige, it'll be that individual will be the odd one out, obviously, and everybody else will be in consensus. 99.9% of everybody else will be in consensus saying, no, that's not correct, so clearly do not add this to the blockchain. So that's the verification of the proof of work. That comes in handy when systems are trying to be tampered with, systems are trying to be hacked, right? So, yeah. Third benefit, and this is the huge one. This is something I referred to beforehand, but no more intermediaries. It actually eliminates many of the blockchain and cryptocurrencies exist, and one of their primary reasons is to eliminate the intermediaries that are involved now in today's systems, in, for example, the monetary systems that you see in Canada, in the US, in many other nations. There is the ability to eliminate many of the intermediaries with blockchain technology. So, so some examples of that, couple of key points with that is that some chains are public and other are closed to a select group of authorized users. So, and others are a hybrid. So let's say, for example, the government wants to be able to show on a blockchain the ownership of your land and the dimensions of your land and the name of the individual who owns it. However, they want to be able to actually ensure that they're the only ones that are changing that data. That's an example of a hybrid blockchain where everything's open with respect to the information of the land and the size, etc. But then there's somebody or an entity that is able to change that in the background on their own accord. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the major players in the cryptocurrency sector. So I'm sure most of you have heard of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin currently is sitting around a market cap, it fluctuates quite a bit, of 557 billion. That is gigantic. So cryptocurrencies in the last 10 years, in the last even 7-8 years, have exploded in market cap and in value. And so we'll take a look as to potentially why. Then we have Ethereum, which you also may have heard of recently with NFTs largely being on the Ethereum network. Market cap of 219 billion. Then we have stable coins such as Tether and USDC. What these stable coins are they're called stable coins because they tend to have a parity, in this case with the US dollar, and they try to, as best as possible, to remain on a one-to-one parity with that. So $1 US is 1 USDT, and $1 US is also 1 USDC. Now, some of the benefits of that, for example, like I made an investment, I'd say about 5 years ago, overseas internationally, and pretty decent sum of money, but it took a wire transfer and 5 to 6 business days, I think it was, in order to transfer. I then made another large investment in the past month here, and it was done using USDT. And that transfer was far faster than my international wire money transfer from TD Bank. So you could see some of the benefits here, especially if we're able to maintain a parity. Because keep in mind, the transfer, these are all digital assets, right? These are all like, they don't have anything tangible to them, which can be complicated to grasp. It can be complicated to understand. However, USDC, for example, is backed by tangible assets according to the entities that are involved there. But essentially, it's very unique because, you know, we have the ability now to have agreements with individuals internationally to say, no, we value this piece of software. All of these are pieces of software, but we value 1 USDT as $1 US. And then with that, you're able to create, you know, transfers of value, just like you are with money. You value a $20 bill because the Canadian government says the $20 bill is this, like, is valuable. It's less than the $100 bill, right? So, yeah, then we have other entities like Cardano, and they each have their own unique, goals and objectives, and as well as benefits and drawbacks to them. So depending on the goal or goals that they are trying to accomplish, there are thousands of crypto coins. And so it's pretty wild as to the number of coins that are available, but each of them have a unique, a unique proposition. That's why they exist. That's why, you know, they don't just make a copy of another coin, although some are quite similar. So let's get into some real world applications, like why does this benefit anybody? How can we see this working, and why is it so revolutionary? You know, why is this something that can actually potentially revolutionize today's day and age with supply chain, with actual value? let's take a look at, for example, a car payment. So when you go to purchase a car, and let's say you want to pay for it in cash, what would you have to do? You would have to typically go to the bank, get a certified bank draft, which in essence is saying, okay, the bank has certified that this individual has this amount of money in the account, and then you would be able to then bring that certified bank draft or certified check, or a bank draft or certified check to the dealership, and then say, okay, here you go, here's the money, here's everything. Now, the great thing about blockchain and the ledger is that all these peer-to-peer computers and the entire network of the blockchain is able to verify that, because it keeps a record of all the history that has been happened. So let's say if I give a member in the audience $1, and then they transfer 50 cents to the next one, then they transfer 50 cents, the entire 50 cents to the third individual. That is all tracked through the blockchain, to which then we can give the final amounts that we each individually have. So yeah, we can take a look at examples like land transfer too. So rather than having an intermediary such as a lawyer and a bank provide all the proof and validation to say, yes, this individual has been certified, has the funds, here we go, and this individual is actually the rightful owner of this land by law, by all the contracts that they have signed, and by all the trackability that has occurred with, and the documents, the legal documentation with that individual piece of land. Why not place this on the blockchain? Why not have all this data available on the blockchain? And that's what a lot of individuals are arguing. They're saying, well, if we have essentially this bulletproof technology that can't be tampered with, wouldn't you rather want to have your land on the blockchain, for example, rather than having some form of error done by a lawyer or done by the bank? There are errors that occur on occasion, right? Whereas we do have the technology now to actually be able to remedy some of these and solve some of these issues here. So yeah, investments, I touched on the international transaction part. So, not only is it time value, but also I think when I made my wire transfer, it was like, $25 or $50 in fees. A lot of these cryptocurrencies have very minimal fees typically. Some have more than others depending on which cryptocurrency it is. There also is congestion within some networks that do kind of rise up fees. So if you're looking at Ethereum and Bitcoin right now, some of their fees are a little bit more substantial. Yeah, and then we go into supply chain. So we also, blockchain and cryptocurrencies, have the ability to take a look at the supply chain and the different processes and steps that are involved with, for example, delivering an item. What if we had the blockchain to ensure that this item is actually en route here, and it's in this transition period here, and it's all written on the blockchain that can't be tampered with? In addition to authenticity of items. So if we have unique items, this is something that you can get into with something called NFTs, which you may have heard of, but we can ensure authenticity of items with the blockchain as well. So you can see it's a wide and vast array of technologies that we now have the ability to utilize and actually provide real world applications to humanity. We'll take a look at something called the Bitcoin Lightning Network. So Bitcoin is the most valuable cryptocurrency. It was the original cryptocurrency, and the blockchain technology itself was initially invented for Bitcoin. So if we look at the Lightning Network here, so let's take a look at Visa, for example. Visa has the capability and does about 4,000 transactions per second. I think they have the ability to go to approximately 65,000 transactions per second. Now that's quite substantial. Like per second, that's a very, that is a pretty hefty system that they're able to try and have that many processes per second, right? Do we need something more? Potentially, potentially not. Now, one of the drawbacks of Bitcoin currently is its scalability with respect to transactions. So Bitcoin as a core currency is actually not typically used, it's not considered a coin to be transactable on a frequent basis, as frequent as, let's say, Visa or MasterCard or something else. However, what's unique about Bitcoin is you can go to the layer above Bitcoin, so going something, doing something called going like off-chain, off the main chain of the Bitcoin blockchain, and you're able to create these developers have created the Lightning Network. So the best way to describe the Lightning Network is to say, okay, let's say you're at a restaurant and you're opening up a tab, and then you order a drink, then you order another menu item, then you order a side item, then you order a dessert to go. Rather than it being all transaction and you paying individually every single time, and then the transactions are made back to back on the main accounts, we simply open up a tab, and then all the transactions are made, and then all both parties care about is the open and the closing transactions. And that's what Bitcoin Lightning is able to do. So with that, there's a transactional layer that has now been, there's a fast transactional layer that has been developed with Bitcoin on that. And it's good for microtransaction settlements. And then all the main Bitcoin network and the blockchain care about is the open transaction and the closing transaction, just like opening up a tab at the restaurant. So with that, we actually have the ability to do millions of transactions per second. Now, the Lightning Network, I think, was introduced in 2017 or was being tested in 2017. But so it's fairly new, but it's another benefit of having this technology that we're able to actually just continue building on. So some of the, obviously with new technology, with anything, there are some drawbacks, and placed a list here of some of the drawbacks with respect to cryptocurrency and maybe some of the things that you might be hearing over in the media as well with respect to that. So scalability, I touched on that point. For example, Bitcoin is not a very good, quick transactional currency. It's more as a digital gold, if you want to classify it as like a digital gold storage. That's what it's meant for. However, we can build on top of that technology and build something like the Bitcoin Lightning Network, which is so far been very good at transactional processes. So drawbacks are also networking fees. So networking fees can be quite expensive depending on the congestion within the network. And so that's like a little bit more complicated. But networking fees, for example, for Ethereum currently are quite high because due to all the demand within the network currently. So that's a drawback because that can, going back to the example of banking fees and interest rates that you may be paying for certain transactions at the bank, these fees could be quite substantial too. The other benefit about Bitcoin Lightning is that there are very minimal fees, which is great for that as well. There's also something called forking. So there are technical changes, cultural differences, or what developers value within the core currency. What happened a few years back was that Bitcoin did a hard fork with something called Bitcoin Cash. So the community was slightly divided. There was a portion of the community that said, no, we want scalability with respect to transactional speeds. And so in order to do that, they said, we want to go this route. without getting too technical, they just said we want to go this route, whereas the majority of other Bitcoin developers and also holders said, no, we want to stay on the traditional route. And so what happened was that there was, at one point, I do remember there was quite a bit of a battle between the value as to who was more right, which one was the real Bitcoin per se. Was it the developers and the individuals that wanted to fork and make it more scalable due to the goal of it being more of a transactional currency, or was it the original founders, or was it the original nobody actually knows who founded Bitcoin, but the original core developers, and do we want to stick on that route? So that actually created a huge drop in Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin's price, because the other group was actually trying to then say, no, we're the new Bitcoin, we're the true Bitcoin. And at one point, there was a little bit of a tug of war, and then, eventually the original core Bitcoin won over, and that's the one that's been talked about most now. So, yeah, there's also the risk of hacking digital wallets and platforms. Now, the blockchain technology is done by cryptography. It's virtually to this date been bulletproof, never hacked. It uses some very complex encryption in order to ensure that the entire network can't be altered. This is more so talking about where you store your wallets. So you can have platforms, there are platforms online where you can actually store your currencies. So there are platforms like Binance, for example. There are platforms like Coinbase, which you may have heard of as well, where you can have multiple wallets of different currencies. So similar to carrying different currencies in your wallet. You can carry U.S. dollars or Canadian. Same thing with these platforms. You can carry multiple currencies typically. However, there have been instances in the past, because this is such new technology. There was an instance about a decade ago where one of the biggest platforms actually got hacked, and a lot of the individuals lost all their coins, and it got hacked and they got removed, and that caused huge havoc amongst Bitcoin holders, and the Bitcoin value dropped significantly because it was such an early stage. It was at such an early stage, and the platform, the world's largest platform, I think it was at the time, got hacked, and so dropped Bitcoin huge in value, and there was a huge investigation with respect to people's investment, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. So what I typically, what I recommend is purchasing a hardware wallet. So it's actually like a physical wallet that's stored locally on the hardware, on the piece of hardware. It's not stored on a platform anywhere, and that's one of the most secure ways that you can store your coins. So volatility is also another drawback. You've seen, I'm sure you've heard in the news that cryptocurrencies are wildly volatile, even throughout this presentation. Like they might fluctuate, to the point where like some stocks would fluctuate within a week. They can fluctuate just like that, and it's happened time and time again, where they've had massive fluctuations, and a lot of people's emotions get involved, especially when their money's on the line, and they say, wow, like, how did I lose 10% literally in, a matter of minutes or an hour? Whereas, a lot of traditional stocks in the stock market typically take a lot longer of a time to either rise that high or fall back that low. So environmental concerns are a huge concern as well. Currently, for example, Ethereum, I think, actually consumes as much electricity as the Netherlands right now. The Ethereum network consumes as much electricity as an entire country. So how do we still use the value that is being provided by cryptocurrencies while ensuring that there isn't a huge, overbearing on, nature and the earth and everything. And a lot of some of the arguments that come from that is, well, the banking system that we have now, how much electricity does that use? If we can, if we're attributing electricity and, usage in that case, then, you look at it, look at that a little bit from a different light as well. Criminal use, so some people say because cryptocurrencies are typically, they are traceable, however, with just identification numbers. You don't truly know with many cryptocurrencies who is actually behind that identification number or that address. So they're called, just the public keys or the address to your, the public address of a wallet. If I knew a public address of your wallet, which is available on the blockchain in Bitcoin, let's say, for example, I could see that publicly. It's disclosed openly to everybody. What is not disclosed are your private keys, and that's essentially your wallet. And that's like as though somebody had your private keys, they literally have your wallet. So criminal use has been, a discussion of criminals using it, but I heard a stat where only, I think it was less than 1% of all cryptocurrency transactions have been used for criminal use, but 5% of cash and, international monetary standard fiat currency transactions have been used for criminal use. So, and then there's also the centralization with respect to the entities developing crypto. So there's a cryptocurrency is looking at that has to deal with a lot, like their goal is with respect to the banking system. However, that is largely developed by a single entity, and they hold a large portion of the Ripple value, whereas something like Bitcoin, as I mentioned before, like nobody really knows. It's been a very interesting scenario where the founder of Bitcoin has just openly placed it to the public and walked away from it. And it's this piece of technology that is so incredible where the founder just let it go openly to the public. And the only thing we know, generally, we know about the founder is his name is Satoshi Nakamoto. But that's the beauty of it too, is that no single entity can sway one way or the other with respect to which direction they want to go to, right? The Canadian government, for example, and I'm not trying to get political, it's just a matter of fact. The Canadian government said we are going to print hundreds of billions of dollars in order to combat COVID and to combat job losses and everything. And at the same time too, they're saying, okay, well, we want to, ensure that there isn't this huge gap between the wealthy and the poor and the middle class and everything. However, you cannot do that. You cannot print that kind of money and not cause inflation. You physically, it's standard economics, right? So a single entity has chosen to do that, and now we're seeing the repercussions of inflation coming about right now, and all the repercussions coming from that. Now, many individuals may say there were alternative ways to actually, solve this issue or solve the issues. It is a complex issue, without a doubt, and what's the best way? However, there are individuals that would say, no, this should not have been done this way. That's the beauty of the decentralization of Bitcoin, is that there isn't an entity that is able to sway it in a direction or the other for the sake of their purpose. It's a living piece of technology that's been pushed out to the public, and now developers and individuals have the ability to build on it. So, yeah. So some of the benefits, we did speak about the benefits with respect to real world applications and how it actually benefits society. So this is kind of a summary. But some benefits that are of value are transactional limitations are removed. For example, the other day I had a limitation on the amount that I can e-transfer to an individual, even though it was completely verified by, within months that amount has been verified and placed in the account, and it is there and it is available. However, I cannot send that because of a limitation from the bank. So those are limitations that the current banking systems have. And these are the current limitations that can be removed and that are removed with blockchain. So the peer-to-peer verification says, okay, it's available, it's actually in the wallet, send it off. You can send it all should you like. So that's a huge benefit with that. There is the ability to have very little transactional fees when making payments. So as I alluded to before, the Bitcoin Lightning Network has a very minimal transactional fees, which actually is of huge value when you're talking with when you're looking for that, when you want to make transactional processes happen, within a grander scale, quite a lot of transactions happen during a period of time. So eliminates the intermediaries, eliminates the individuals that potentially may sway things one way or the other, such as a government, such as a central bank, such as lawyers, if there is no need for those individuals, or if we can remove them from the equation, save time, money, then that unlocks a huge value of opportunity with that. Scalability is also a benefit as well. As mentioned before, Bitcoin is a technology that has the ability to then scale on top of the current technology, which is of huge value. Software can be expanded and upgraded. So continual improvements are made. All these cryptocurrencies are code. It's code, they're sources of software. Software has the ability to be upgraded by the core developers. And Ethereum just recently, I think in the last couple of days, did have quite a substantial upgrade. And we have the ability to keep adapting and upgrading these features to use them for the goals that mankind wants. And it also solves many of the issues plaguing supply chains. Supply chains now have been disrupted more than in quite a while, more than ever. And if we can use blockchain technology to be able to improve supply chain management and supply chain operations, that would be of huge benefit, because everything is being written on these ledgers that are non-destructible. They cannot be tampered with. And if we can use that to expedite a lot of the supply chains and in many of the industries that that we use, then it's of huge value. So, yep. So if we take a look at to wrap things up, you've taken a look at some of the drawbacks and some of the benefits of cryptocurrencies, and hopefully you've been able to gauge a little bit of information as to why they're valuable. We have guys like Elon Musk and Bill Gates who think cryptocurrency is of huge value. They see the need for it. They see the solutions that it's proposing to some of the issues that are plaguing us. And then we have others like Warren Buffett and Charles Munger who absolutely despise cryptocurrency, thinks it's one of the worst inventions ever, and that it's going to zero. And they have literally said that. So we have complete polar opposite sides of individuals, and funny enough, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are friends, on these things. And this isn't anything new. This is, this is something that people have and individuals have, made their own conclusions on, just like, for example, an investment you would or wouldn't make. one individual may have a completely different conclusion as to another individual with the exact same information given to them. Now, who's right? Only time will tell, right? So then we have our good old friend in the background there. Can't really see him that well, but Kevin O'Leary. He was a very big cryptocurrency skeptic initially, and he said, like, he doesn't get it, he doesn't understand the logic. Same kind of spiel as Warren Buffett and Charles Munger. But now he's, more than ever, he's a huge, he's a huge proponent for cryptocurrency. He actually has said that will become the 12th sector of the S&P. And so that's his prediction, and something like that would be massive. So one of the drawbacks, which I didn't mention now, is policy that is being made, that is currently being discussed and being made as we speak on cryptocurrency. If there was policy made where now these big investment entities are able to invest in cryptocurrencies legally, that opens up a whole new scale with respect to the value that these cryptocurrencies will have. And that will only be done with policy. So, yeah, it's a very interesting, it's been very interesting to see the progression of individuals and their opinions on cryptocurrency and their beliefs, especially these big giants in the financial sector and in many of the other, sectors in the tech sector like Elon Musk. So, yeah. Awesome. And that is the end. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Awesome. If you guys have any questions for Elias, we also have Larissa. So Steve, if there's a way to get her going with the video, she's from Service. So if you guys have any questions from the previous presentation on market portfolios or real estate, again, we have two very different perspectives and different views on kind of different topics with this. You guys can ask one question to either of them or both of them. She's here today. She's right there. And also for the online viewers, I'll be monitoring the chat. If you guys have any questions, we can, go for probably 10 or 15 minutes. And if you guys have to go, that's okay too. I know we're a little bit over time. But I wanted to open it up for anybody that has any questions.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrencies, you make a lot of money. I hear a lot of stories. So what is the reality? What is the truth about it?
What is the truth? Yeah, so for the online community, from what I'm understanding is, let's say, for example, you invest $1,000 in cryptocurrency. What are we expecting in the next couple of months? What return on investment would you expect? Is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? Right? For the most part. The answer is, if I could tell you, I'd be retired. So nobody can actually tell you that. Nobody truly knows. Just like the stock market, nobody truly knows what will happen within the stock market. Now, it has taken a beating. Can it take another beating? Yes, it can. Things can go up or it can reverse, right? I guess my answer to that, I would say, is like Kevin O'Leary, I think, says, do not invest more than 3% of your, of your total assets in cryptocurrency, right? My theory behind it is, whatever you are willing to lose, whatever value you're willing to invest into cryptocurrency, just ensure that you're willing to lose. And then, personally, for me, due to the value of Bitcoin, there are a lot, and just to be weary, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies. A lot of them are complete bogus. And they've actually, some of them have outright said, like, we are literally making this as a joke. And yet there's value and there's tangible value in that, right? There's tangible value because people see and make it a value. There's a supply and demand for that. So I'd just be very wary of that and kind of stick to, you know, personally, my opinion, like personally myself, I stick to the top two. So, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So, the value of Bitcoin is fluctuating for the most part by supply and demand, right? So, the great thing about Bitcoin and the benefit is that supply is fixed. There will ever be 21 million Bitcoins mined. Mining is something we didn't touch, but basically there will only be ever like 21 million Bitcoins in existence, period. Now, there's a fixed supply. So that's the other benefit to that. If we had a fixed supply of Canadian cash, you know, yes, there are definitely drawbacks to that. There are definitely benefits to printing out more cash and saving the economy from complete ruin. But there are also drawbacks, such as the inflation we're seeing now that's going through the roof, right? So, yeah, basically, essentially by supply and demand. If I want to buy Bitcoin from you at this current price, you say, okay, I'm willing to sell it to you for that price. I'm willing to give it to you from that price, and then we have an exchange, just like a stock. So stocks are being traded typically like, you know, like continuously per second. So somebody's selling the equivalent that somebody's purchasing, and they've come to that agreement to say this is a value. Now, when stocks go down, it's because there's a lot more individuals wanting to sell than there are individuals wanting to buy. So the same thing with cryptocurrency.
But in the case of stocks,
Yeah.
you've got a tangible asset behind it. Let's just look at oil and gas. You've got
Yeah.
people buying oil and gas,
Yeah.
which then increases the price of those stocks because that company's doing well.
Right.
You don't have that as crypto. It's strictly the purchase and sale of the coin.
Yep. Exactly. So for example, like Bitcoin, a lot of people refer to Bitcoin as digital gold, right? So now what's the value behind that, right? Well, the value could be argued in multiple ways, but one of them is being proof of work, proof of what you've seen is like that some of the solutions that it can actually solve, and as a result provides value, right? So, yeah.
Next question is, the estimates this year are approximately $72 billion in illegal activity on Bitcoin. About 1%.
Yeah.
Right now, it's still very hard for any agency to follow the money trail.
Hmm.
But certainly the FBI and Interpol are leading the charge on that. What's going to happen when they start to seize assets, but all those assets are now mixed? Whose money are they actually taking?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So based on the information that I gathered, based on the sources that I've looked at, they did say cryptocurrency as a whole, the amount of illegal activity has been less than 1%, right? Now, 72 billion is still a large amount. The market cap for cryptos, I think right now is sitting around 2 trillion, right? So in all. But yes, that is a valid point. That's actually a complicated issue that has arisen, right? So yeah, with technology comes these benefits, but also these potential issues that maybe regulators can't solve, right? So no, it's a very valid question. Now, the answer to that is yeah, it is difficult to tell, right? So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so there's only, so for the online audience, sorry, I should repeat these. For the online audience, so you had asked, there's only a certain number of coins, right? So what I was referring to was total number of Bitcoins, actually. Yeah. So somebody can make a cryptocurrency project tomorrow, should they like, and create their own coin, which people have done constantly. So with Bitcoin, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins mined. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Larissa, do you mind touching? Sorry, it's off Bitcoin now, but just about is this a good time for first-time home buyers? Would you say with the current hot market to buy either a condo or a like kind of a single entry home for a new family that just say a couple that just got married? Is this, would you say it's a good time, or is it going to come down a bit more?
We can hear fine, so the live viewers can hear fine. Well, live viewers will be able to hear fine, yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, Larissa. It's just something on our end with our computer, but you can go ahead and answer. Yes.
But I keep hearing this from different sources. The condo market seems to be not as highly priced as detached houses. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, thank you. That the detached house pricing is maybe a little bit high, and concern is, could it be slightly overpriced? Could the prices go down when the demand is not as high because of the rise in interest rates and people are maybe not able to afford to buy as much as they're hoping to? For the first-time home buyer, condo may be more affordable in general, but also in the event that maybe things are slightly overpriced right now, condo may be not as exposed as a single family home. What worries me a bit more, and this is sort of related to both condo or a detached house, is what may come with a home ownership. So you buy a property, probably, not a new build necessarily. What if you do need to make some renovations? Like I know when I bought my property, I wanted to install some extra electric appliances. Well, it appears that, with appliances taking longer to get delivered, or even like general things like wiring required by electricians, that could be a problem. It may take way longer than you expect. So especially for a first-time home buyer where maybe your resources are slightly tied up, it's a nice idea to reassess the property you're buying. Is it going to need any extra work? Because the cost of work is one thing. The time it takes could be a different one, specifically right now. And I probably would stress that more importantly, than I would in a different time. From a first-time home buyer's point of view in general, like there are different resources available from your own savings to, maybe using home buyer's plan from an RSP. There are ways to make it work, but also depends on the need of your family. Do you need a detached home or do you need a condo? I personally think condo is way more affordable and probably way more reasonably priced in general right now.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that one. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Do you guys have any more for Elias or for Larissa from the live audience? Sorry? Yeah, on real estates or anything that was shared in the previous one about market portfolios. Or I'll give you the mic just 'cause.
Yeah, I want to find out. You said the first time home buyer can deposit 5% if you are working. So the question is this: if you are not working, but you have a source of income, maybe overseas or anywhere, are you not entitled to buy a home? Because if you're not working right here in Canada and you don't have a work, a job, does it mean you don't have opportunity to buy a home here in Canada? That's one question. Second question is about what do you call it, REAL, something about pulling resources together to invest in real estate, tangible or intangible, whatever it's called. And the other one is about mutual fund, okay? So the question is between this REAL and the mutual fund, which one is more beneficial and more profitable? Thank you.
Those are really excellent questions. I'll start with your first question. If you're looking to borrow from a financial institution in Canada, the guidelines between various banks are pretty similar. You need to have what they call 5 C's of credit. You need to have good credit history. You need to have the capacity to pay your debt. Capacity refers to your source of income, and it has to be verifiable, stable. So usually bank is looking for like about 2 years of employment, preferably with the same, employer. So if your source of income is from outside of Canada, chances are you will probably not be able to get a mortgage in a Canadian financial institution. And if you're looking to have 5% down, am I understanding correctly that you're talking like primary residence, or you're talking like an investment property?
Investment property, you said.
Yeah. In Canada, usually the required down payment for an investment property is 20%, 20 to 25%, depending on the institution you're borrowing from. 5% is a minimum requirement for a primary residence. So 20%, could be manageable, but the difference that you need to borrow kind of follows the same guidelines, where the bank will be looking for, source of income within Canada that is verifiable.
Did that answer the question? And I think there was one more about the
REITs or mutual funds.
yes, mutual fund or real estate. Yeah. Like pooling
So,
your resources.
The general premise is with more risk, you have more opportunity for return. So if you're having some performance that is higher in one type of an investment than the other, it usually means you're taking on more risk. The risk may come not necessarily from like an extravagant investment. It could be more that, it's really focused on one or two or just narrow shelf of items you're investing in. In a REIT situation, real estate investment trust, that's pretty narrow. You're literally dealing with real estate. In a mutual fund, you are in this widespread universe of many things involved. You may have real estate through REITs, you may have banks and energy, which are not the worst choice in the current situation in the world. You will have healthcare, you will have a lot of other things. So if you're looking at which one is better, well, kind of what is your goal and what is the amount of money you're investing? I heard Elias mention Kevin O'Leary saying, invest up to 3% into cryptocurrencies, like basically what you're willing to lose. Same idea is how much you're willing to invest and what is your expectation for return. So if you're looking for a really high return and you're looking for, go all in and hopefully it works out, you have really specialized mutual funds that are geared to achieve that, and they will be going up and down volatile. And you can have also real estate investment trusts that will be so narrowly focused on, that if it's a really good market, they can perform well. If things are not going well, you're probably going to see more downturn than if it were a really well-diversified mutual fund that has many other things. If real estate is going down temporarily, probably other things in the market are not going down at the same time. So your mutual fund that is more diversified will stay afloat better than a really narrowly focused just REIT. So again, that's why I keep saying like the goal of your investment is like really paramount. if that's your play money where you're willing to take a lot of risk and see what comes of it, REIT maybe not a bad idea. If you're looking more generally like the bulk of your investments, kind of your long-term goal, maybe your retirement savings, I wouldn't recommend something as narrowly focused because don't put all of your eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Okay. With that, if you guys have any more questions, these guys will leave we'll have their contact information if you want to email them. Just with timing, we have to unfortunately call it a night right now. For the live audience, if you guys want to come talk to Elias after, he'll be around. And Larissa, do you have an email address as well that people can reach out? Maybe you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll see you through the chat.
Okay, and I'll post that as well after. Why don't we give a
It's
final
my
round
first name dot last name
Sure.
.ca.
And yeah, why don't we just give a final round of applause to Elias and to Service Credit Union for today. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Larissa. And thanks Elias for doing that. Learned a lot. So for the Community Hub stuff, we have one more seminar that will take place in 2 weeks on Friday, June 24th. We have Connie Jacob coming to speak. She's a very sought after speaker on family wellness, and she does work with adolescents. And so she'll be here on that Friday night from 7 to 9 p.m. And that's our final seminar for the year for the grants. So if you guys are around, it will also be recorded and on live stream as well if you guys are interested. I'd highly recommend coming to it. She's a really great speaker, tons of experience working with kids and adolescents and teens. She's written a lot of books and she's spoken all around the world. So we're pretty privileged to have her. Yeah, and that's about it for now. And thank you guys again for your time. And the recording, if you guys want to access that or any of the old recordings from the whole program for the whole year, you can go on the website and it's under resources on communityhub.ca. So yeah, thanks again. And thank you to Steve, our wonderful sound guy, for helping us out tonight.